and Mesud Sali. Doug's been investing since a very long time ago. He's been an IFA, and he's been a property investor, and he's done just about every property investing technique there is over the years, 25, 30 years in the business. So they're going to talk to us about instalment contracts, which are a very specific, very niche way of earning an awful lot of money in a very short period of time. So please give a very warm welcome to Doug and Mesud.
Good evening, Swansea.
Good
evening. How do you say it? Can't remember now, can you?
Albert. What was the Welsh name for?
Abertawe.
Abertawe. Good evening, Abertawe.
Well, in the next 40 to 50 minutes, we're going to show you how you could be making between £40,000 and £50,000 per deal using instalment contracts. We're going to show you how you can do that without taking out a mortgage, without the need of a deposit, without the need of a credit check, and without even having to find a tenant. Now, that's a brilliant one, isn't it? Don't need any tenants. Without paying for voids or repairs or maintenance. And in fact, you can do all of this without any experience whatsoever. So before I do that, I just want to very quickly introduce myself. As Tara said, my name is Doug Ponsford, and I purchased my first property back in 1975, so 30 something years.
When I was younger.
Can you move over there? That gentleman can't see the screen. When you was a young boy. In the late 80s, I set up a IFA mortgage broking practice, and I became a creative mortgage broker. I learned some very creative financing strategies, and the strategy which I learned basically was to buy property without using any of my own money, preferring to use mostly the bank's money. And I remember the very first buy-to-let property I purchased had a value of £60,000. I agreed a purchase price of £40,000. I went to the bank and borrowed £57,000, paid the 40 and banked £17,000. And that's basically how I built my multi-million pound property portfolio, which I manage myself today with a member of staff. And that generates profits of well into six figures on an annual basis. Now, if you remember back in 2007, we had a bit of a banking crisis. It became difficult to borrow money from the banks all of a sudden. Banks were closing their doors and lots of banks disappeared overnight. So I needed to find a new strategy to enable me to continue to grow my portfolio. Luckily at that time, roughly about that time, Mesud came along and we started using instalment contracts. And that strategy has enabled me to massively grow my portfolio. And since then, we've done lots and lots of deals, and we've averaged between £40,000 and £50,000 per transaction using instalment contracts. Over to you, Mesud.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening again. My name is Mesud Sali. I arrived in the UK 2005, 29th of August. That was a very memorable day for me. And I studied as a university student, my career in the UK. I arrived with £825, and next I had to pay my tuition fees. So there were £800. After I paid, I had £25 left. On that day I made a promise. I made a promise that I'm going to make it really happen in the UK, because my family has put all their energy and all their effort to bring me up and get good education. So I had the opportunity to make it happen in the UK. So I made a promise on that day. And I would like you to all stand up, please, if you may. That worked for me really, really brilliantly. So I'm sure it's going to work for you as well. I would like you to raise your hand and put your other hand on your heart and make a solemn promise. I am going to make money from property.
I am going to make money from property.
Once more. I am going to make money from property.
I am going to make money from property.
Once more, twice louder. I am going to make money from property. Thank you very much. I arrived and started going to uni during the day, and I started working at a restaurant in the evening. Soon I realized the restaurant had a staff house, and I was living in the staff house and working in the restaurant, and it was owned by the owner of the restaurant. So he was sort of not looking after the house. The house was empty, it wasn't in good condition. So I approached him the next day and I said, look, if I manage this property and fill it out with tenants, if I pay the mortgage, if I pay the bills, would that be alright? He said, go for it, son. You manage the property, make sure the mortgage is paid. All you have to do is just pay the bills, and if you make any money, it's yours. I filled the rooms up very quickly. I moved 4 tenants in 4 different rooms. So I realized I was making more money from renting those rooms out from property than I was making working part-time in the restaurant. I said, what a great strategy. How can I make more money? So I started attending networking events like this in London, and I met Doug over to, where was it, Milton Keynes, in one of the meetings. So we bumped into each other a few times, and soon I asked him, Doug, you've been marketed as the most creative mortgage broker in the world. Surely you can get me a mortgage. You're the best in the market. Unfortunately, it was 2007 when the whole market crashed. Do you think he got me a mortgage? No. Who would lend to a student from abroad with a broken accent who is unemployed? No one. So I said, Doug, we have to find a different way. So I attended a creative property investment workshop. I learned those very creative strategies, and I said, Doug, I know all this information, I'm ready to rock and roll, and you have some leads that you have generated and you don't know what to do with them. So we put our heads together, structured the leads, and soon we had 3 brilliant deals on the table, and we said, well, if we can do those 3 deals, surely we can make a lot of money from doing more deals. So since then we've done over 40 deals. Tonight we're going to show you a few of our most exciting deals. So let's get started.
So let's have a look at an overview of the evening. So first of all, we're going to look at what is an instalment contract, and we're going to show you how we're controlling and buying property using a single document. That's the next bit. We're going to show you some real life examples, how we're making massive profits from every deal, and then we have an offer for you. It would be daft for us to travel all this way across from Kent, south of England, all the way across to Swansea, cross that bridge, through the toll, to show you something for 55 minutes, which isn't very long, without giving you an opportunity to learn more if you want to. So for those of you that are interested in instalment contracts, once you've seen a few ideas, we have an opportunity for you to learn more at the end of the presentation. For those of you that are not interested, please just cover your ears and sing. And for those of you that are interested, it will take no more than 5 minutes to explain that. So let's start off.
Doug, what's an instalment contract?
Well, you know what? And most people think an instalment contract is an option, but it isn't an option.
What is it then?
In fact, it's an exit strategy. Basically, it's a standard conveyance. What we're looking for, our marketplace, are buyers. Those people that would like to own a property, but they can't own a property because they can't get a mortgage, or they don't have a big enough deposit, or a combination of both.
A bit like an option then.
Well, an option, you're moving a tenant into the property and you're responsible for the upkeep of the property. We move a buyer into the property, therefore we have no cost of a tenant. So what we're looking for is a buyer who would like to own a property, and they pay us by instalments, which is via the instalment contract. It presents more opportunities because we have a bigger marketplace. If you think about, for the moment, which part of the UK population today can get a mortgage, and which part of the UK population today can't get a mortgage, either because they don't qualify or they haven't got a big enough deposit? Do you think it's most people can't get a mortgage, or most people can? So would you agree most people can't get a mortgage today, either because they don't qualify or they haven't got a big enough deposit? So we're marketing to the biggest part of the audience. It will all become very clear.
So estate agents are marketing to a smaller portion than we do.
They're marketing to people basically who are either buying for cash or they go and get a mortgage. Yeah, smaller market. So it presents 5 far greater profitability, because when we sell a property to a buyer on an instalment contract, we tend to charge a premium price. In fact, we can charge up to 25% more than the current market value. Generally speaking, when you sell a property through an estate agent, you're offered some way below market value. We sell at above market value because we're presenting a unique opportunity for the incoming buyer who would otherwise be forced to rent. A lot of people are uncomfortable with renting, would like to own, so we offer that opportunity. It's a unique money-making strategy because when the buyer moves into the property, they exchange contracts, standard conveyance. They also pay a deposit, a small deposit, as opposed to 10, 20, 30%. They pay a small deposit. So the deposit they pay on day one is our first payday. They then pay a monthly instalment. The monthly instalment can generate masses of cash flow.
Why is that?
You tell us why is that. Come on. You ask
Because
the
it's
question.
higher than the mortgage and it's higher than the rent.
So the monthly instalment is usually much higher than the monthly rental if it was a tenant in situ. But the thing is that the reason why it's one of the most profitable strategies, even more profitable than multi-lets, HMOs, etc., is because we remove the cost and the headaches of having a tenant. When you move a tenant into a property, you're responsible for the property and you're responsible for the tenant. That costs a lot of money. When you take the cost of providing a tenant and a house for the tenant, you take those costs away from your income, it reduces your profits quite considerably. I know because I have a lot of properties. So on an instalment contract, you have no costs for a tenant because the person moving into your house is a buyer. So let's show you how we're making massive profits in every deal. We'd like to show you some examples, and we're going to repeat these examples, not the same one each time because that would be silly. But we're going to show you some examples so that you can get an idea of how it works. I find that the best way to teach somebody is through repetition. Repetition, repetition. And after the second or third example, you may get a bit of an idea of how it works. So we call this a babysit because we didn't buy this property. We simply agreed with the owner of this property that we would babysit the property and we would babysit the mortgage payments. We didn't take over the mortgage, we simply babysit the payments. The reason why this gentleman agreed, Glenn down in Station Road, agreed for us to do that is because he'd been trying to sell the property for 8 months and he was being offered, through the estate agency, he was being offered below the amount of money that he needed to pay off his outstanding mortgage. All he wanted to do was to move in with his girlfriend into their parents' house, save for a deposit on a house together and get married and have children. That's all he wanted to do. This was preventing him to do that because it was a 1-bedroom flat, ground floor flat. He was paying the ground rent, the service charge and the mortgage, and he couldn't save for a deposit for him and his wife, his new wife, to buy the house. So we agreed with him to move away from the problem. We would take his problem away, babysit the house, babysit the mortgage. So once we've done that through a single document, we then put it on the market, which took us about an hour and a half. Can you tell us what that says, Mr.
Buy my 1-bed flat, no mortgage needed, £5,000 moves you in, 597 per calendar month, and the flat is yours. Call Vicky. This is Vicky.
So I got a lot of calls asking somebody to speak to Vicky. I said, well, Vicky's just stepped out of the office, so they'd have to speak to me instead. So anyway, we found a buyer very, very quickly. This is in Station Road, so there was a lot of people passing the door every day, twice a day, going to work and coming back home again. We also got a lot of attention from the local media, from the local councils, from the neighbours. We appeared in the local newspaper, but it was all very good advertising for us. So we very, very quickly found a buyer.
Pretty much everyone in Kent knew that we were selling this property.
So we found a lady called Tina who wanted to buy the property, and we sold it to her on an instalment contract. Mesud, give us some numbers.
Right, this, ladies and gentlemen, this is our least profitable deal, so that's the least amount of money we've ever made on a property purchase and sale. Okay? We sold on an installment contract. This property was probably worth about 75, maybe 80,000 pounds if Glenn was lucky, but his mortgage was a bit higher than that, and he wasn't able to sell it. He was with estate agents for ages, and they couldn't shift it. Actually, when we took the property on, it was on with 6-7 agents. Does that tell you that there is something wrong with that deal? All of a sudden we know, okay, we put it on Rightmove, well, 6-7 estate agents are listing it. Well, obviously this guy's quite desperate. So we knew that there was some problem. So it was slightly negative equity. But we knew this great strategy that we can sell on an installment contract, charge a premium price, take a deposit, charge premium monthly payments. In exchange, somebody will move and call this their own home. A first-time buyer, somebody who hasn't got high enough deposit, somebody who couldn't get a mortgage, somebody who had a default on their credit, judgment on their credit, somebody with small credit issues, couldn't buy this property the traditional way. Tina saw one of our beautiful signs and she decided, oh, what an interesting way of advertising. Well, I'm interested in it. I'm just separating with my husband and I need a place. I don't want to live with him anymore. I said, Tina, surely you're walking away with a lot of money. Yes, I am, but I haven't got it all now. So can I put a small deposit down, and once the divorce is settled, I can pay you the rest. I said, Tina, what a great idea. How long do you think it's going to take to settle the divorce? Oh, it's probably going to be years. Okay, Tina, that's not a problem. You can move in, £5,000. She said, well, can I put £19,000 down? Do you think we rejected the offer? Well, we said, okay, Tina, if you insist, of course you can, you know. So we took the £19,000 deposit. Okay, well, this property was slightly upside down, so we had to use some of the money to repay the negative equity down. So we kept most of it, used some of it to pay the negative equity down. Okay, because we took such a great upfront fee, that reduced our cash flow to only £40 a month. Initially, we were estimating about £300 a month. So, okay, we're taking £40 a month cash flow, next to nothing. We put a little gem in our contract. So we knew that that this property is slightly upside down. So we needed quite a bit of time to repay the negative equity, so it goes into positive equity, and so the amount we owe our lender is greater than what Tina owes us. And we put a little clause in there. If you pay the remaining balance earlier than 7 years, they're going to be £6,000 early redemption penalty, same as a lender. If you were to pay your mortgage earlier than 2 years or 3 years, your lender will charge you 3%, 5% differently. Okay? So we put a similar clause in our installment contract. After 8 months, Tina said, I got the money from the divorce, can I pay you? I said, Tina, of course you can, but do you understand that we have a £6,000 redemption clause? She said, no problem, I've got lots of money, I'll pay it. So she paid us in 8 months and we made £19,400. How many of you, ladies and gentlemen, would like to steal?
Mesud, how much did we pay for this?
Nothing, zero.
And how much did we pay to renovate the property?
I paid about £35 to put the signs up.
How many tenants did we move in?
Zero.
So, Kevin, can you see the screen from there?
No.
Cool, thank you. Stay there. Let's have a look at another babysit. This is babysit number 2. This is a property in Renown Road down in Kent, in England. And this was owned by a taxi driver called Bob, who'd hurt his foot and he couldn't work. So by the time we got to him, he was in arrears with GE money, and we was talking to him on Wednesday, and on Thursday next week he was going to be repossessed. £1,800 arrears. So he'd already started packing his boxes and he was going to move in with his sister, so he was quite happy to do that. He was already had the idea that he was going to lose the property. So by the time we got to him, we said, Bob, how would it make you feel if we could pay off your arrears for you, and we could allow you some more time to pack your boxes and move into your sister's house under your own steam? We'll stop the repossession, we'll babysit your property for you, we'll babysit your mortgage payments for you, and we'll pay off GE money. How would that make you feel? Well, he couldn't believe it. He said, it's fantastic, can you do that? Of course we can do that. So that's exactly what we did. We signed a single legal document which gave us control over the property,